Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today it's Turtle Power time yet again because we are back in the world, one of the worlds, I suppose, of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Last time we went in depth into something Turtles related. It was all 5 seasons of the 2012 show, which you can check if you can check in our channel if you scroll really back because I think it was
There'll be a video card that comes up at the end of the video or at this moment that'll you can click on and go watch them. Have
true if
fun.
you're yeah. I will say it was a long time. I think it was like what 3 years ago that we did this.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long while, but yeah, time we are back with more Turtles contact because this story here drew a lot of attention from the Ninja Turtles fandom because let's say if the best way to describe this story is that
It was
this is like
4 years ago.
it was 4 years ago, so
We're getting old.
2019. Yeah, tell me about it. I'm 30, so I'm old as you now. I can't even make fun of you that you're old. Like,
Welcome.
well, so with that being said, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. This story drew a lot of attention when it was announced. It's essentially the Dark Knight Returns of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's like an alternate future continuity that's based on ideas that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the original creators of the Ninja Turtles, this is like what they had in mind, like as a plan for if we had to if we had to make an end to the comic, if we were supposed to write an end all be all, this is the story that we would have come up with. Obviously, it was just an idea they had of like one turtle will remain to eventually finish the mission. This is what the premise was. We didn't know
Mhm.
which turtle it was. We didn't know what exactly this mission would be, and we are not gonna talk about the identity of the last Ronin until we get to spoilers. We're gonna start talking non-spoilers first, and in the spoilers we'll talk about it. The one note I want to make is that unintentionally I ended up receiving a copy of the trade version of The Last Ronin Last Years, which is like a mid-quel sequel to The Last Ronin. We're not gonna cover that in depth because Wolf didn't read it, but throughout the review I might mention it and talk about it a bit in context to some stuff.
Mhm.
With that, so now non-spoilers, The Last Ronin. Actually, before that, um, in terms of history with the turtles, I'm the big fan. And Wolf, would you say you are casual? I know it, but I'm not a big fan. But I don't mind it as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Very much similar to, for Sonic as well. Like I know of it. I'm fairly familiar with it, but not like huge into it or anything.
Only as opposed to Sonic, you don't make fun of me for liking the Ninja Turtles. I guess
A little bit.
that's the one difference. Though actually, interestingly, this comic and like this most of the current Ninja Turtles comics, besides the ones that Peter Laird still has some rights to, is published by IDW, which also does the Sonic comics currently.
Hmm.
Give me a crossover,
You know,
people. But anyway,
speaking of, this is also, I believe, our first time covering a comic here as well.
well, if you
Other
don't
than
want to
the
count
yeah,
the How to Train Your Dragon ones,
well, those were graphic novels. I don't
it's
know.
like same
Like,
shit, different name.
I think I,
When I say shit, it's not a
no,
shit.
no,
The
no, fair, fair.
comics are great.
Like, no, absolutely, I get you, but like, I don't know if like the comic people out there get angry. It's like, and do their
Yeah,
thing. I don't know.
okay. Like I get what you mean, but like I think usually if we did comics, then I guess it was like maybe if we were talking about something that was based on a comic, so maybe we would compare. But
I think this is our
besides the
first
How to
time
Train Your Dragon,
covering a straight comic, other than the How to Train Your Dragon graphic novels. Yes.
yeah,
So,
yeah, basically
welcome to an
first time.
Outcast first.
Yeah, eh, talking about a comic. So, Last Ronin, no spoilers. I love this story. This is probably one of
Mhm.
the best Ninja Turtle stories ever out there. No matter the incarnation, it has great art. It pulls
Mm.
no punches. It as a fan, it touches my heart like nothing else. I love this. Wolf, what about you?
No, this was good. Like when you asked me to cover it, I've never, again, since I don't keep up with too much TMNT stuff, I'd never heard of this. But this is definitely like, as you said, the art is amazing. The story's really good. It's very enjoyable. It's nice that it's like very, I would say, kind of like to the point, right? There's not a lot of faff, what you get with some comic book stories, where
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot. And then again, maybe years from now, this will be one of those comic book stories where there's a lot. But I like that this one's very short. It's only like 5 issues as of
Yeah,
now,
5 issues.
and you
Mhm.
get
Well, it's
it
not really
contain a
as of
self.
now. The story, like there is,
Well,
like
yeah,
I said, there's the last years, and they are making a sequel,
true.
but the main thing, like the last
Yeah,
Ronin, it's 5 issues.
it's nice that it
You,
tells like very self-contained story in so few issues, right? I don't
hmm
think that's a general thing that comics do, right? Like there tend to be a lot more issues for a self-contained story sometimes.
I guess it depends, and
True, true.
just I made a comparison to The Dark Knight Returns earlier. That also had sequels
Mm.
suddenly, but you can still
I mean,
read The Dark
yeah,
Knight Returns as its own story that begins, ends, and if you don't want to invest in what's coming afterwards, that's your choice. But
which is
because
fair.
the story generally ends, there are just events which are taking place after it.
Yeah,
Also, from what I heard, the Dark Knight Strikes Back is terrible. I haven't heard much about the other one, like the Master Race. I think don't know.
mm.
Just Kevin Eastman. On the off chance you're listening to this, I trust you with the Last Ronin too, but please don't do Dark Knight Strikes
But
Back.
yeah, like
So
the art here is
overall,
amazing. It's a good
mhm,
story. It's interesting to see because generally a lot of what we get from the turtles is it is more aimed at the younger audience, right? Even though that's not necessarily
depends.
what the turtles are always have been for.
Yeah, like let's say, like I said earlier, this was like Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman when they created the Ninja Turtles. This was like their backup plan for like if we have to finish this, this is what we're gonna do. This is the idea, and you can see that while other versions did tone it down a bit, like obviously the '80s version is nothing like
Mm.
the original comics, but you saw stuff like the 2003 show and the 2012 show and the first movie, especially the one from 1990. Those are, while they are not necessarily, you know, while they're not dark to the point kids can't enjoy them, they are a bit darker in tone. They are a bit more
They
adult.
have
They
their
are a bit
moments,
more
yeah.
violent. Yeah, and so, but this really feels like I haven't read too much of it, but this does feel like the first, the first comic, the first issue that they
Yeah.
released back in the day when it was really violent. Still a parody, mind you, because it was supposedly a parody of Daredevil. That's why.
Yes.
That's why. Because that's why the Shredder's organization is called the Foot. It's a parody of the hand.
Yep, and
So
Splinter's called Splinter, because Master Splinter and Master Stick, right? So,
yeah,
yep, yep,
exactly. So it really captures that vibe of the
yes,
original Mirage comics, and for all intents and purposes, you can tell that. Interestingly, while Peter Laird does get like a header credit for writing this because of the concept, he wasn't actually involved in this. Kevin Eastman was, but the writing team with him did a phenomenal job. Like if you told me this is supposed to be the conclusion to the Mirage thing or any of the other comics, I believe it. It feels right at home for with what they try to do.
hmm.
And
Well, it's actually interesting to read because, like, it definitely feels like reading the first issue, it feels like you're coming into it's like things have already happened, right? And you're
mhm.
getting kind of that backstory filled in, but it definitely feels like if you've read all the other issues of the comics, you're kind of walking into a story you already know, right?
Not just that, it does also feel very like no matter what version of the turtles is your favorite. Like either if you grew up with the '80s cartoon or the 2003 show or the movies or the 2012 show, whichever version is your favorite, you can argue every version can give you what you need for this. Even obviously there are changes, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I
But
would
like
say.
as long as you know these characters, this comic is gonna hit you in some way.
Yeah,
And I think it's kind of impossible to not know the Ninja Turtles by this point, considering what it's like. It's been around for almost 40 years, and look at all the billions it's making.
true.
So, but that's another thing I like, that they don't just assume that you know these characters. They take time to establish stuff. They take time to establish relationships and stuff that happen. Like if you're a fan, you don't feel like you're wasting your time. But if you're not a fan, you get it enough to understand what how fans would feel reading this. And like as a fan, I can tell you by the end, I was fucking sobbing. No shame.
Fair.
And I guess one more thing in like non spoilers is that I'll say last year's is I was afraid that, because it's like, just from the title, all last year's, it's gonna be just kind of filler between some stuff, right? Just to fill some stuff that they didn't really need to focus on. But I was surprised by one, how tightly written it was, and in a way it feels like an integral part to the story, like not in terms of understanding it, but maybe in terms of accepting it a bit more, or understanding how the characters are where they are when we meet them in the last Ronin.
Agreed.
So so yeah, that's basically, I think that's all the non-spoiler thing we have to say. Just a great comic, go
Yeah,
read it.
yeah, go read it. Yeah.
Well, this is the point where we're going to start talking about spoilers. So, if you are a Ninja Turtles fan, or just curious and you haven't read it, you got a recommendation. Go read it, then come back to, because we're gonna talk about spoilers. So, spoilers start in 3, 2, 1. Still here? Good. Michelangelo is the last Ronin. There.
Everyone's dead. No, like
Well,
I do have a question for you. How long? Because they introduced that he's the last. That Michelangelo is the last Ronin, and like the
Mhm.
last turtle left alive in the
Yeah,
first issue, more or less. How
yeah.
long did it take you to like kind of figure
The
out that he was the last, that the
so
others were
the
dead?
ending, yeah, so they confirm. That's the thing, that the premise for this was, 3 of the turtles are dead and Splinter is dead. April and Casey I don't think were mentioned, but it was like the last Ronin is like the last turtle standing, but they never said who it is. So here's the thing that I am kind of bummed about, because I'm not really into comics. I don't really like keep up with new comic releases all that much.
Mhm.
I was spoiled online that the last Ronin is a Michelangelo story.
Mm.
So I went into this knowing that it
Well,
is him. That's actually
I went
what
in
drew me.
completely blind.
Yeah, but I will say though, that's actually what kind of drew me to the story, because people who know me know that Michelangelo is my favorite turtle.
Fair.
Always was, always will be. So seeing a story focused on him, and one that goes this dark, like he's the last one standing. I was obviously curious. I wanted to see what they're gonna do with this, because it's Mikey, it's my boy, it's my party boy. I want to see how this happened. And so I went in knowing that
Mm.
I went in knowing that, but I don't think it really spoiled me much. But I would still say, this is why I'm keeping this to spoilers. I don't want to like ruin it for people. But what did you
Fair.
think as going in blind?
Well, so going in blind, like when we started getting the comment, I mean, I was a little like, okay, so what's exactly going? Because I had no idea of any of this, right? I went in completely blind, nothing. Just knew the name, The Last Ronin. That's all you had told me, and it's a
Mhm.
TMNT thing. That's all I know. So like reading it and like kind of getting into it, they have like the other turtles kind of talking to Mikey, but they never showed
Mhm.
them like on the page or anything for a
Yeah.
good while until close to the end of the first issue. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so gonna make an assumption, could be wrong, but gonna make an assumption all the other turtles are dead. And yeah, I was
Mhm.
right. I did not know
Yeah.
it was Mikey though that was gonna be the last one. That's when it kind of like, okay, Mikey's an interesting choice because he's not the one that you would expect to be, like this in a story like this, really. Like Leo,
Yeah,
you could see it. Maybe Donatello, definitely Raphael, but not Mikey.
yeah,
That's an
like
interesting one.
that's actually so. I guess this is the point where I'm talking about because obviously the writers will ask why Michelangelo, and they said there are two reasons for this, and one, like you said, it's the option you'd suspect the least
True.
because out of all of them, like Raph is the obvious choice to
Yeah.
go on a suicide mission. He's the last one. He's gonna he's gonna avenge his brothers. That's mostly a Raphael thing. Like Raphael is the it was the obvious choice. And like when I told a friend about this, he was like, "Ooh, the last sounds like a Raphael thing," and I'm like, "It's not Raphael." Haha. So, Leo is also kind of obvious because he's the leader. Like that's one of his things. Like who's gonna go on this mission
Well, also,
to avenge his brothers? Like than the leader.
like again, right? The way they write it, it feels like it's Leo to a degree because the way they're talking, because the way
Yeah.
like the
It,
Mikey talks, to himself and everything. It's like, okay, this feels like Leo talking. Like this feels like things Leo would say. And
and
then the way he
yeah,
acts feels a little bit like Raph. That's why I was like, maybe it's like a more angry Leo, someone who's like tired of all the shit, I'm done with this. Because that's the way it kind of
mhm.
comes off to me. So I was very much thinking like, okay, this is Leo. Especially when he started
But
using the sword, I was like, all right, this is
yeah.
definitely Leo. He's just using everyone else's weapons as well. Because I was like,
Mhm.
100%, this is Leo, but all the other turtles are dead. That was my thought at first. And then it's
And I think
Mikey.
yeah, so the thing is that so they said Raph is the obvious one, so that's a no. Leo, they said it's also kind of obvious. Then they said Donatello is like it would also be a surprise. Just kind of like with Mikey, it would be a surprise. But then they figured out that if Donnie was the last one standing, then he would probably use more technology and
Yeah.
gadgets to get the job done than than
I think this works
regular
better
ninjutsu.
with it being Mikey,
Yeah,
right, as well, because
yeah.
the
So
personality
then they
switch also, right?
yeah,
Because
and so
Mikey
that
is supposed to be more of the jokey one, more of the funny
yeah
one,
so
and
that, so
more
and
lighthearted.
that's something yeah and that's something that really stuck to me. That one, Mikey is obviously like the last one you would expect, but it also felt like a very underdog story. Because and then when you go back and like reread the first issue knowing it's Mikey, the other dolls talking to him does make sense. And last year's kind of talks about it, that they still see him as the little brother, as the jokey one, as the party dude, and they feel like they need to babysit him. And so they when they told him, you're hasty, you're not thinking this through, are you thinking this through, do you even have a plan? It sounds like those three never really leave him because he's the young one, he's the
Well,
baby brother.
it's also again like
And
that's how they kind of treat him, and that's how he still sees himself now, even though he's really not that, right? Not anymore,
mhm.
anyways. Not in this story, but it's
Yeah,
interesting because that's how he remembers him. So that's how he still sees himself in a little bit of a way, because that's his, like that's him. I guess I would say hallucinating that, right? Like they're not really there. That's just him
yeah.
doing that.
They're not actually there, and it's implied that it's in his mind. So.
Yeah. But again, though, I love that. I love the like survival skills stuff here, the kind of PTSD stuff they're doing, but also just the just everything they're doing with it. It's all really enjoyable and great, and I love
Yeah,
it. It's
uh,
definitely a far departure from what I'm used to Mikey being, and I think that's great. I
yeah,
think it was a
and
good decision.
mhm. Yeah. So, but that's another thing. Again, as a big Mikey fan, I really, I really enjoyed what they did with Emil because, yeah, it's not necessarily what you would expect Mikey to do or be, but it's a good development for him because you know what? He is the last one that people would assume who would go on a mission like this. He is the last one people would trust with a mission like this. And I feel one they handle them really well, that like you can still tell it's him in the way he talks and the way, because you can see like that the jokey manner, the jokiness for him is still there to an extent. And the writers also talked about this, that because he's the last one you would expect, it would make for a most interesting story with a lot more stakes.
Mm.
Because because this is the one that nobody really gave a second thought to, and now he's the one that's fighting to end it, and he's not gonna give up until it's done. And I felt that they did this wonderfully. And the other thing, and also as someone who was always like this is a personal thing that people would usually say that because of my jokey nature because it seems like I don't take stuff seriously, they underestimated me. So and then like whenever the least expected, I show them that haha, no, I know more than you do sometimes. So it felt really personal to me and
Mhm.
and helped me connect that, to see that with my favorite turtle, no less.
Oh, fair.
So I enjoyed it a lot. And the last thing that I said is technically it's kind of confirmed that technically when Eastman and Laird created the Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo is technically the first one they created, because when one of them drew the concept of a ninja turtle, what would that be like? It was a turtle that had two nunchucks strapped to his hands. So they and fans kind of make the connection that Michelangelo was the first one they created.
Mm.
So in the meta sense, it made sense that the first one created is the last one. Is the last one standing. I just think it's cool.
Fair. No.
So you enjoyed Mikey being
No,
the
again,
last
like,
Ronin?
yeah, I think it was a great decision, 100%. I think it would have been fine. I think there's a lot of stuff that they, like the turtles talking to him, I think that works best with Mikey. I don't think you could have done that with Raph or Leo, especially not Leo. And as you said, like Donnie would have been using more tech stuff. I
Yeah,
think
it.
Mikey's the best choice for this, right?
Mhm. He really is, and I'm not saying this because I'm biased. And you know what? Even if he's not necessarily the best option for this, they made it feel like he is. Like they wrote it really well in terms of like, okay, we chose Mikey. We're gonna make you believe that Mikey was the right choice, even if he's not your favorite turtle, and they succeeded. Like, bravo, bravo.
hmm
I think,
hmm
and and yeah, I did see some nitpicks to an extent that like, oh, but if that it does kind of feel out of nowhere that like, how did Mikey become so talented with all the weapons and all the things?
I mean, they do
But
mention like he's like what 100 years old or something now at this point, or
well,
like just
not
super
a
old.
hundred,
Like
like
he's
not a
really fucking
hundred,
old.
but let's say he's not a teenager, as the title would make
Yeah,
you believe. But
not anymore.
I think, I think though, if by quick math from what I can remember, right? I I'm gonna assume that it's like maybe he's like around his 30s, like
He's my. That's why I like it so much. He's my age. I relate to
well,
this old man who doesn't give a shit anymore.
yeah, I
That's
guess
what we
fair.
need, more TMNT old men.
Well, then it will just be Ninja Turtles or
Yeah, that's
Mutant
fine.
Ninja Turtles, no
Yeah,
teenage.
that's fine.
Adult Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Get rid of these fucking
It
teenagers out of here. We don't need them. Get out of here. Be
you
gone.
know something. Now you just sound like those people who hate Mutant Mayhem because they actually cast teenagers in the roles and they just let them improv, even though it's the best part about the movie.
Nah, 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 nah. Terrible. Get these teenagers out of
I hate you too. Anyway, okay. And so it's implied that he's like around his 30s ish. And but the thing I want to say that for one, I think the flashbacks hold up really well in like telling you what he went through.
Well,
He
from what I
was
understand, like the flashbacks are done in like the old style of the comics too, right?
Yeah,
Which is
that's
really
Kevin
good. Like seeing the
Kevin
difference in
Eastman
art
legit.
styles and everything.
Yeah, like I think Kevin Eastman actually drew them himself. I
It's
want to say.
amazing. Again, going back to the art,
Hmm.
it's amazing in this comic.
Hmm.
All of the
Yeah,
art is
so
top notch.
like the flashbacks I felt really showed like that because he said I was ready to die. I lost all of my family. I was ready, but I just wouldn't. And last year's does go a lot into this, like what he was doing and who he trained with and how did he get to the conclusion that he needs to go kill Hiroto. and all that stuff, and like another kind of a side tangent that he has to do. That's like the main thing, that he has to kill someone else because of a promise he made to a master. And that's actually how he gets, the cloak, the black cloak that you see him wearing in the Last Ronin. There's an origin for that in last year's.
Hmm.
Go figure. So, and so if you want more build up as to how, he got to the point where he is at the beginning of the Last Ronin, this is your chance. But here's the thing: it didn't bother me with the Last Ronin, but then when I read last year's and came back to Last Ronin, it suddenly the story felt a lot more climactic, like a lot more of like a big finish. It already did, but now more than ever. So if anything, kudos to last year's for
Well, a
doing it
question
so well.
I have for you for last year's, does it go
Yeah.
into more of like the world as well? Because I think that's also interesting here, where we have like a somewhat of a future New York with like
See,
Shredder's grandson and Karai's
yeah,
son taking over, and like we have
Hiroto,
yeah
yes,
Hiroto, we have synthetic ninjas now, and we have like the world is apparently seems to
Sinjas.
be yes ninjas. Oh, what a dumb name, but that's the
It's a dumb name,
TMNT.
but it's in team.
It's
So
yep, it's in theme, absolutely. But yeah, like it's very interesting for the world because it seems like they kind of brush over it somewhat quickly. They don't pay attention to it too much. It's just like, hey, this is kind of like the world's like New York's basically a walled city now. It's completely closed in because the outside's apparently gone to shit, and climate change apparently, and all that jazz.
mhm,
So
yeah.
does last year's go into any more of that, especially considering it focuses on what he was doing in the
we
meantime,
see
or
we definitely see more of the world. We don't see New York in that, like
yeah.
just in flashbacks and like flash forwards that I'll
Hmm.
talk about later. But we see more what he has been going through. And the thing is that, like, after there was this point where he was walking up the Himalayas,
Yeah, the main
just
comic talks
wishing
about
to
him just
die.
in the mountains for a while, and that was it.
Yeah, so last year's talk about it, that after he just saw that the call won't kill him, he just tried meditating and calm his spirit and everything. And then eventually he met the master who supposedly trained Splinter, if I remember correctly, and he taught him more. And then when he decided to, and he's also the one that told him, listen, you promised someone that you're gonna take care of this terrorist guy called like Snake Eyes, I think it was. I have the thing here. I'll look after.
Mhm.
But and Mikey is like, I'll help you fight him. And then and then he gets into all these weird adventures where he grows and develops and meets people and loses people. So you see more of the world, definitely. But it also shows you that while New York evolved into this like cyberpunky place, some places like Korea and I think Mongolia are actually war zones now. And
Mhm.
depending on where you are in the world, you might not like it necessarily.
I mean,
but
fair. Like, yeah,
that's
pretty
but
shit
like
for your area potentially.
yeah,
Fair,
but
fair.
I guess it just goes to show that, yeah, we do see a bit more of the world as he travels to try and find info, or where the people he's looking for are. And also the other turtles do constantly tell him, talk to him when he's doing that, which
Mm.
I also like, that you never really get to see Mikey talk back to his brothers. And in this one, not only it feels like he's also feeling some sort of, a bit newfound bravery, that he can talk to them and criticize them, and tell them that they are not as hot shit as they think they are, because he's the one that's still there, and they're not.
Mm.
So it's like feels like a kind of a hollow victory that he kind of takes comfort in, but also not,
Yeah.
which again adds a lot of depth to him,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's great. So anyway, we find out that Michelangelo is the last Ronin by the end of issue one, and then we also find out that, which last year's does talk about it, that Michelangelo actually thought April's dead. He had no idea that she's alive.
Yeah.
And we find out that April is still around with a prosthetic arm and leg, which honestly was a bit creepy to see at first. I was like, oh shit, what happened to her? and she has a daughter, Casey Mary Jones.
Yep.
What I'm not sure. What do you think about the fact that the daughter has the same name as Casey?
I think it's fine. Like it makes sense since Casey was supposed to be her husband, and they're kind of setting all that up right in a flashback that they're gonna
Hmm.
get married, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
like he died in all that fight and everything with one
Hmm.
of the big final fights in the past with the Foot Clan. It makes sense, right? I see nothing
Hmm.
wrong with it. I think it makes perfect sense. I get it.
Yeah, and also, I did like this. I did like this Casey. Like they could have just made her like, oh, I've heard so much about you from mom, and I want to be like you. And they do play around with the idea of like the excited young kid who wants to fight, who wants to break out and do, grand things, and and Mikey's like kind of like you said, the grumpy one, get these teenagers out of her. I don't want to put anyone at risk. And
Hmm.
but they have a good chemistry
Yeah,
with each
no,
other.
agreed.
They have a good chemistry, and also just April in general. I really enjoyed in this story because this woman went through a lot. Like this woman went through a lot, and she has some of the best dialogue. She has some good scenes, and
Well,
she
yeah,
doesn't
like
feel like she.
later in the comics,
It,
seeing the flashback with her, right? Like seeing like, hey, I have to, learn to walk again, learn to use my arm again because I've got like,
yeah.
I lost my arm and
Hmm.
my leg, and also being
Hmm.
pregnant at the same time, and then also dealing with everyone, losing everything, like losing your home and all of that, as well as losing everyone that you'd ever known. Casey, all the
Hmm.
turtles, Splinter, everyone's
Yeah.
dead and gone. She thought she was
Like she said,
literally alone. So
yeah, like she said, she literally lost her family.
and I like how it's
Uh,
it's her, right, that tells Mikey, like, hey, you're dealing with survivor's guilt. I get it. I've been there.
mm,
You don't have to
yeah.
tell me anything if you don't want to. Like, I thought that was a
Hmm.
good moment between the two of
And
between the two of
last
them.
year's also touches on the fact that she had to do a lot of deals with the black market in order to get by, which yikes.
Mm.
Mm. So April was great. It was great in this because they could have just made her like the mom to an extent, that she has to be a mother to Mikey because she was always kind of like that, and but also a mother to Casey. And but she's not just the mom; she's actually helpful in both the mental way and also on the field. Eh, this is something that in the original comics and in the 2003 show, April was a scientist, and
Hmm.
and I enjoy the fact that they brought this back and actually did something with it. Like she's a useful asset to the team as a brain, as someone who can find Baxter Stockman's gadgets. I
Mm.
enjoy that because it's not like, again, I don't really remember in the comics or in the 2003 show, but I don't think her being a scientist was something that was focused on that much. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's been a while, but I enjoy that. I enjoy that we got to focus on it, and especially in the flashbacks and the way they talk. I really felt like April and the Turtles and Casey, either of them, are family. They felt like a family to me more
Mm.
than any other version.
Yep. No, I agree.
Like there's the flashback where April and Casey are setting up the house for the Turtles to come in to tell them that they're
Yeah.
engaged, and suddenly they just burge in, and it's like, clear the table. Splinter's hurt. The food attacked us, and it's like immediately you're like, what the fuck happened? And no one questions it or anything. It's just, this is the situation. This is what's going on. We're in fucking trouble. Like, again, knowing how to grab you again. Like, even if fan obviously as a fan, it will hurt you more because these characters and everything. But
Mm.
I guess even if, as for someone who just reads this without any context, watching something like this, you already feel like the camaraderie. Like, these are people who know each other. These are people who trust each other with their lives. That these are this is a family we're talking about here.
Mm. No, fair.
And in the same issue, we get, I think it's in the same issue, the second one, where we see how Raphael died, where because he charged at the foot base and fought Karai.
And a
And like,
ton of Foot Clan soldiers.
yeah, no, he's running around.
Murked everybody.
Yeah, no,
Very
he's
Raphael.
yeah, no, but which I think, you know what, if Raf had to go, I think this is how they would have played it. You
Yeah.
know, how we would go all
Yeah.
fucking out. He doesn't care if he's bleeding, he doesn't care if he's killed. He is gonna wreck shit up, and my god, does he.
I mean, after this point, like he's the one that puts Karai into a coma essentially, and
Mhm. Which is
pretty
another thing that
much
I'm because
devastated the Foot Clan.
yeah, and the other thing though is that he and Karai end up fighting underwater, but the thing that got me is that you turn the page and suddenly it's not split into panels. It's not ending. You just see a full page of underwater Raf's bandana and this sigh.
Hmm.
That's a fucking strong image. That's like, whoa, holy shit.
Agreed.
Like again, we talked about the art, but like this is just in terms of composition. Like as soon as you turn the page and you see that, just it's not even a two-page spread. It's just one page that show you the Sai underwater. You don't need anything else. You know what this signifies, and it does the job way too well.
Agreed.
And then we get it also, in the when Casey and Leo meet, that they actually have a talk about it after this. Who's gonna buy the pizza and who's gonna decide the toppings? And then again, you kind of just flip the page, and what do you see after the explosion? You see Leo's sword in the ground and Casey's mask. Like, fuck.
Yep.
Donnie and Splinter don't get anything like this. We get a regular, we kind of get a regular panel, but it's still seeing Splinter and Donnie fight together until the end. And when Hiroto is actually there and Splinter just talks shit to him, again, this is not just like, oh, they're gone because Hiroto's. No, no, no. They fight with all. They fight until the end. They are not going. No one is going out like a pussy.
No, I mean,
Everyone goes out with a
Splinter's
bang.
Splinter feels very badass in this one. Like you can tell, like, okay, this is the master who's been fighting for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And he
Mm-hmm.
knows his stuff. Like seeing him just chuck the sword at Hiroto, but not
Yes.
unfortunately not being able to kill him, and then Hiroto like calling in the archers for because Hiroto's
Mm-hmm.
a bastard, right, and doesn't believe in honor and
Yes.
all that jazz, and
Mm-hmm.
Splinter telling him like, "Hey, I'm gonna show you what honor means, young whippersnapper. Let's go."
Yeah,
It's like, all right,
and
nice, fair,
again,
fair.
Dies or not, Splinter is a badass, and this symbol and this showed it. And again, losing Donnie in the same fight also, it's gonna happen by this point, but it still sucks. And just the more the story continues and seeing Mikey just getting used to the idea that maybe he does need a team, maybe he can train Casey to be a ninja. And also one plot point that I found kind of odd, I'm not sure what I feel about it, is that because April and the original Casey were in so much contact with the turtles, that the mutagen kind of rubbed off on them. So yeah, the new Casey is kind of a mutant herself.
It's a little
That
weird, but it's
yeah,
it's
that's a
like it's fine.
like it works in terms of what it tries to do, but it's also like I I don't know. Like I think the story wouldn't change if she were a regular human, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, like it doesn't really add any. Like, maybe since we're getting a sequel, they'll do more with it. I'm sure they will. But I think if they wanted to do something like this right, I think it would have been better if they would have changed the ending of this comic.
Hmm.
Considering what the ending of this is, then it would have like okay, like this is fair, it's fine. But yeah, as it stands, it literally adds and changes nothing.
We'll see what they do with it, because I'll tell you right now, last year's doesn't touch upon this too. It's just a thing.
Yeah, 'cause it just feels like a thing for her. For like, hey, she's also a little bit of a mutant.
Mhm.
Thumbs up, and then that's it.
Yeah, diversity? Question mark. Well, anyway, and I've been kind of leading this. Anything that stuck to you personally about this?
Ooh.
Because
I mean, like, yeah, just yeah, I love seeing Mikey start to train Casey a little bit, and like them having that, like you said, they have a great chemistry between one another. Even Mikey and April have a really good chemistry between one another. Like they do
Hmm.
really well, making writing for Mikey as the chemistry between these characters, and it's not like April's not someone who he, as far as I'm aware, interacts with a lot, right? Generally speaking,
Well,
that tends to be like
it's
Donnie or Leo or the others.
let's say that it seems like in most versions it seems like that maybe not to necessarily say that there's a love interest angle to it or anything, but it usually seems like actually that she's probably sees Mikey as the closest friend,
Mm.
like at least from some interactions I recall. That it seems like that they're just really close friends that would trust each other,
No, fair,
and
fair.
yeah, and like obviously April could trust any of the turtles, but it seems like that with Mikey she just feels like yeah, because one of the reasons he's my favorite. He's the fun one. You can sit down, eat a pizza with him, and just chat and have a good time.
Not here. He no
So,
fun no more. No more fun.
and obviously, considering everything he went, like that's another thing. Like last year's really makes you appreciate this turtle has been through a lot.
Hmm.
Okay, this
Hmm.
turtle has been through some shit, and so no wonder he's no longer a jokey person. Okay, like he saw stuff. He lost people besides his brothers and Splinter and Casey. He went through a lot of shit. But I'm talking general TMNT stuff.
No, no, fair, fair. Also, getting to see like Professor Honeycutt turn a Baxter Stockman to Ash essentially is like damn. Like
Yeah.
yeah, that was a really good scene
Mhm.
too.
I actually was actually surprised to see Fugitoid in this because I wasn't really sure what his role is in other Turtles media. So
Yeah,
if
I'm not as
you tell me
familiar with that one.
if you told me Fugitoid, I think about the 2012 version, and probably because it's David Tennant, but but
No, I mean it
because
was
it's also
interesting
the
to
same
see him
design.
here.
Yeah, because it's also the same design as that. So I'm wondering.
I'm sure he
But
has
yeah,
like a big role, but
but
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, like
that's
it was a good scene. It works,
mhm.
and like seeing the final fight between Hiroto and
And
Michelangelo as
Mikey.
well, really good.
Mhm. I will say, actually, Hiroto I found to be an interesting villain because, in a way, he's the complete contrast to Mikey.
Hmm.
He's also like the last one of this clan, right? He's also like it started with Shredder and then Karai, and you can also tell that in some way he kind of hates Karai because of like the responsibility that he ended up getting from her,
And the fact that she
and
kind
that
of abandoned him in
yeah, and
his words.
they also said that he's essentially her bastard son. He's not even, it's not even there like from a good marriage or something. He's literally a bastard son. He doesn't like Karai at all. And if I th- and he I think he also said that the reason he keeps Karai in a coma is because he hates her. He doesn't want to bring her back.
Yeah, he just yeah, he kept her that way just so she could see him succeed at what she failed at, essentially. His words, right? Which is like,
that's
damn, dude.
that's fucked up in so many ways, but I also love it because again, kind of like how the turtles keep talking to Mikey whenever he's having self-doubt. In a way, Hiroto is also brought down by his family, by the legacy, by what he was born to. But when Mikey tries to keep himself calm and he has a dedicated goal, Hiroto just seems to go slowly nuts because of it, because he's telling himself what he's capable of, what he needs to
Yeah,
do.
like he's like constantly saying, "I am a god." It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, dude. Like
Yeah.
and again, like I think you're right. A lot of that comes from being the grandson of like Shredder, right? Someone who
Mm-hmm.
also was a little bit similar in that vein, but could probably
Yeah.
keep it more under control. I guess you could say, right? Like more
Mm-hmm.
calm about things and all of that. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see here where Hiroto is the exact opposite of that. He can't do that, and it's easy for Mikey to get to him and rattle him.
As
And
much as Hiroto tries to get to him too, Mikey does say, I can't. I need to get to him.
yeah,
This is my these are my chances." And honestly, the final fight between the two is like you can feel every hit, like be it the
mm,
art or just what's going on or from the dialogue. this is it. And again, Mikey mentioned this throughout the comic that at least in the original comic, I think IDW follows that too. That Splinter is not Hamato Yoshi as most people would think from the 80s cartoon and the 2012 one. Splinter is actually the pet rat of Hamato Yoshi.
Yeah.
And when Shredder kills him, Splinter gets mutated, and he basically trained the turtles from the very start. The first comic is about him training them from the start to kill Shredder. So it's I think it made it more powerful to follow with that. That they Mikey sees this as this is it. I'm ending what started. I'm ending this now. Either if I die or if I kill Hiroto, it ends. No more. Done. And it feels like a final fight. And I think my favorite part is when Mikey does use all the weapons from his brothers and tells them like, "This is from Raphael." Donatello sends his regards. Leonardo says that, and eventually, when he finishes them off, it's with a good old nunchuck.
Yep. But no, I think it's an interesting final fight, right? And also, like, spoilers, they both die at the end, right?
Yeah,
I
well,
think it's
we're in the spoiler section. We've been talking about
well,
spoilers
spoilers
for the
for the
last.
spoiler section for the spoilers. Spoiler
The
section. But
real
yeah, like
spoilers.
Mikey, and both Hiroto die at the very end. Mikey getting to like see Casey one last time and say, "Hey, here's, Splinter's journal, my master's journal. Use it and learn from it," right?
I love though that the last page, like before, the last page written by Splinter said no peace because in Splinter's mind he technically failed to either to finish this war, either if there's no peace or if he didn't manage to kill Shredder or Karai or anyone, and the foot rages on. So to him, so he ended up with that no peace. And then when Mikey hands Casey the journal, he said, "I added that last part up, which says no peace, like KNOW,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
be aware of it. Don't be afraid of it." And it hits,
Mm.
man. It really hits. Like I am sad that this is how it had to end, but at the same time, there's no
It
other
makes
way it could have
it
ended.
makes a lot of sense. I think I would have liked it more
Hmm.
if it had been like hey, old man Mikey gets to live and just be old grumpy man. He's the new sensei now, right? Training
Yeah,
the next generation. I would have enjoyed that a lot personally. I think it would have been nice, but it makes a
but
lot of sense that like, hey,
yeah,
this
I
is the
think it
end
makes more
of the two
sense.
clans and the two families die
Mhm.
off here.
And especially if this was the way, to at least some degree, if this was the way for Eastman and Laird to really finish the story, if this was their way to like be done, then Mikey had to die.
True.
They couldn't have just
I
left
dislike though
one
if that's the
element.
case, like if that's what they were trying to go for. I
Mm-hmm.
dislike that they show them making a new generation of mutant turtles.
Well, okay, let's say we'll talk about it soon. But because I will say I did enjoy that at the very least we have the little bit of dream sequences to show that they all met again in the afterlife.
Yeah, no, that was
I
really nice. That was really good.
It was again like some people would say, "Oh, schmaltz," but I think after all this, we kind of deserve the schmaltz. Like it's not. It will be nice to see
Yeah,
a family reunited to
yeah,
a
you could
degree.
see all the turtles there, Splinter there, Casey there, and they're all just kind of living the good life, in
Hmm.
like a little dream thing or like in the afterlife sort of deal. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's nice to
Hmm.
have that. It's
Hmm.
good.
And I think you're gonna have some choice words for the epilogue.
I don't like it. I think, they shouldn't have included the thing of April making new, mutant Ninja Turtles or just mutant turtles, right?
Hmm.
I don't
Well,
think that's a good thing. I think they could have like cut that panel. I get it, hey, potential for a sequel and we're getting a sequel now, so it makes a lot of sense, but I don't know. I kind of meh on it. Like you had the really good ending and then you kind of ruined it by showing like, but there's more sort of deal, right? Maybe
yeah.
it's just
Well,
me. If you're
I'll
gonna
tell
do
you.
that ending, Again, I think it would have made a lot more sense if Mikey lived to
Hmm.
be the new trainer for everyone, and he's the new, master, master splinter
So thing
essentially.
is, last year's touches on this actually.
Okay.
That's why I say a sequel, midquel, because in last year we are getting some stories about because just to recount, in the epilogue we see that Casey keeps on training, and then she and April are actually raising a new generation of mutant
Yeah.
turtles. And the thing is, I think this was something that was like an editorial note there that, like, if we ever want to do a sequel, might as well put it there. Because again, obviously
Pay
this
your
is not like
editors.
the because
No,
not
it's fine.
obviously now it's not the end all be all story
No,
that.
no. Like this isn't like this wasn't meant to be the end of the turtle story in general. Or this was like
Mhm.
as you said, this was going to be like, hey, if we did ever want to end the turtles, this is how we would do it, right?
Again, this is why I think the best comparison is the Dark Knight Returns, like, which
And
is
this is at this point I think supposed to be like an alternative story, right? Like
like
this isn't
because
connected like
what the Dark Knight Returns was essentially like an alternate future where after 10 years of retirement at the age of 50 something, Bruce Wayne puts on the mask again to because he sees that Gotham is going to shit, so he decides to come back to put the mask back on and take care of business. So in a way this is kind of like the same of, like, oh, there's this alternate future where three of the turtles died. Splinter died, Casey, and the one last standing turtle alongside April and her daughter are gonna finish
well,
what Splinter and Shredder started.
the main comic series for TMNT is still going, right?
As far as I'm aware, yes,
Okay.
but from what I've heard, it's also it's essentially all coming down to whenever Peter Laird decides to actually move his ass and do something. But
so
I
so it's the George R.
I'm
R.
not
Martin.
entirely. Mm,
The George R. R. Martin
I
plan. Like whenever he gets there, he
eh,
gets there. That's it. You get
well,
what you get.
but I'll tell you this: Ninja Turtles is good. Okay,
I
for
mean,
okay,
Game of
okay.
Thrones, the books are good, but the show.
I am just making
No, no, no,
fun
no. Fair, fair.
because
Like
it's a thing.
so,
For
but
the record, haven't read the books, barely watched the show. I am not claiming anything. I just made a joke.
you're not missing
Um,
much from
uh,
either.
I had all I actually, a friend told me not too long. I don't remember what we were talking about, but she mentioned that apparently, people try to kill the actor who plays Jeffrey because people really hate the character.
He did a really good job of playing a villain, and
Yeah,
people are
okay.
assholes. I
I
feel for the kid,
that's yeah,
but
not taking pity on whoever is gonna play, Abby in The Last of Us season 2. But besides the point, moving on.
we'll see. But yeah, so this is essentially like an alternative, like a
Yeah.
different verse, essentially, right?
I think now there is actually an official name. It's called the Ronin
Yeah, the
verse.
Ronin verse. But this is like an alternative TMNT, and the main TMNT
Yeah,
story is quote
and
unquote still going, essentially.
I think the way they're talking about this is like an alternate universe for the IDW run of TMNT comics, which is not
Okay.
related to the Mirage stuff that
Okay,
probably
I
is
see.
still going.
Okay, I see. I see.
So
I
yeah, so it's
understand
kind of
now.
an yeah, it's an alternate of that, and
Comics.
I yeah. For the record, this is by this is after the point where Batman told Raphael, "This is where my parents died." Raphael, whoever. I
Uh
assume you
huh.
are aware of the meme.
I am. I am.
Hmm. But we should probably talk about this and the movie one day because
No, no, no,
because
no. No one likes TMNT. Not
what
this
the fuck
much.
is wrong with you? we okay. Anyway, so I think since it's no longer the end all be all story, I
Mhm.
get someone probably saying, let's put new
Yeah,
titles at the end, new titles at the end. I get it. But it's also because it's an epilogue. If you don't want it, you can just kind of ignore it.
true. And this is where the comic ends for you, and you go on. You don't get a sequel, and you don't read any of that because it doesn't matter to you.
Well,
Absolutely fair.
well, now is the point where I say that last year's actually has some stories set in the future where those four turtles are actually grown, Casey is their sensei, April is their cool grandma, and they tell them stories about the original Ninja Turtles and their grandfather Casey.
Is it
And
good?
honestly, yeah, kinda. I wasn't opposed,
They
to
don't
be
name them the
honest.
same names, do they?
No, no, no. Actually,
Okay.
I will say that two of them are girls. Actually,
Interesting.
Hmm. I that's the thing though, that their names I don't even I know that they have names, but even if I look them up, the thing is that they are very hard names to pronounce. So I'm not even gonna try. I don't want to butcher it,
No, fair,
but
fair.
there is actually something cool about it, that while the original turtles were all named after Renaissance painters, these these ones are essentially all a variation on the number one.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like, because I know one of them is named Uno, and that's the only one I know how to pronounce. I apologize,
Well, yeah,
but
that's just I believe Spanish if it's spelled the same
yeah,
way for the number one. So yeah, that's
hmm
very simple.
yeah. Mhm. And also, it's the one I heard before. I'm not sure how the other ones are pronounced, but
Fair.
anyway, yeah. So there are four new turtles, and to be like, there seems to be one of the girls seems to be like the Donnie in the way that she's like the tech whiz that helps April out with her
So
inventions, but
kind of the same personalities a little bit
no,
still.
but at the same time, she's also a bit of a klutz in that idea. There's one
Hmm.
who is like bigger than all of them and might be and will be the first to start a fight, but he's also like has this, but he also kind of has this stereotype of oh, he's big and fat, so he's always hungry, kind of deal. And like, I won't say that they're necessarily the same, but you've seen these character types before, but they're not
Yeah,
a direct copy of the
not
original.
sure if I like what they're going for there potentially,
I will say,
personally,
I'll
but it
say
could be
because
better
obviously,
seeing
let's
it
say
right.
because last year's for the most part just talks about Mikey's other years, but and the stuff with the other turtles is a bit more on the side. But there is a full story where like Casey is actually April convinces Casey to actually go on a date, and she takes the other turtles with her to like run some errands in the black market, and you get some insight about actually one of the surprising things is that one of the clients that April used to go to, he had a daughter, and when April, Mikey, and Casey, flooded the Food's, Baxter's lab
Mhm.
in the Last Ronin. When they flooded it, it ended up killing the guy April used to trade with, and now his daughter kind of has a vendetta against April. Like, she doesn't hate her, but there's a lot of tension between them, and
Mhm.
it was actually really.
Interesting.
And like last year's does end with like Casey and April giving the new turtles a speech, like, we trained you, we trust you, we know that you're going to make the city a better place, and I assume that's what the Last Ronin 2 is gonna be about. For the record, at the time of this recording, I think maybe only one issue of that came out, and I am not even sure about that, but
Mhm.
I am not gonna read it until it's complete because that's just how I do things with comics.
That's fair.
And if we talk about it one day, we will.
Hmm.
So anything else about the Last
Oh,
Ronin that you
yeah. I
want to?
mean, speaking of sequels, a few questions for you. I would like to throw out. You
Yes.
did after reading these 5 issues, did you want a sequel?
Honestly, no,
Fair.
because like we said, it's like we talked about this already. It was literally the perfect ending. Like, it couldn't have ended any other way. I don't like, if you want to, like, I think maybe even if we had to have that epilogue there where we said, yeah, maybe just leave it up to people to just let their imaginations run wild. I don't necessarily need to know what
Yeah,
is
yeah,
going
don't
on,
show
but
the turtles. Just have like keep everything the same. Just don't show the image of the new of like the little tiny turtles in the tank and everything. Don't show that part. Just
then
leave
at the
it
same
vague.
time just then at the same time just cut the epilogue altogether.
Yeah, or
Not
that.
needed.
Yeah, yeah. Either or. It's fine.
So I could have lived without it, but you know what? Considering I also thought last year's is gonna be just boring filler. But then when I started reading it, I just couldn't
Well, yeah, I
put
was
it
gonna ask
down
like,
because
so yeah, like you would say, having had the lost years, do you think it was a good thing to have it, or do you think you could have done without it?
you can read the Last Ronin and feel satisfied, right? You
Fair,
can.
I am
If I
mostly.
only read that, I would have been like, okay, you know what? I'm good. I don't need anything else. This was a
Mhm.
good read. But having read last year's now, it literally for something that I was gonna be like, okay, it might be nice to see how things happened or stuff like that. I ended up really enjoying it. I
Mhm.
thought it really helped develop my key, and and again, in a way, I would even say maybe I would even say that I heavily recommend it. I was surprised that midquel got me so intrigued that I literally couldn't put the book down. The day I
Mhm.
started it, I finished it with barely any breaks. It and it's rare for me. I am not much of a reader, so
Fair,
it's good if you can grab me like that.
very
Now
fair.
for the sequel, I'll keep an open mind. I'll give it a read. I'll
That's
see what's
fair.
going on.
No, absolutely fair.
Now, anything else you want to ask me? You said questions.
Yeah, I did. I mean, there is a game being made. Are you interested?
I I know that we were gonna go there because I will say this right now. About at the time of this recording, all we know about the game is that it's happening. It's in development.
We know
We got
who's
at
we know who the dev is, and we know who the publisher is, and that's it.
Well, yeah, we know that it's obviously been published by THQ Nordic because
Hmm.
TMNT is a Nickelodeon franchise now, and THQ Nordic are the ones who are doing all the Nickelodeon games. So obviously they are the publishers. Developers are Black Forest Studios did did the fourth Bubsy game. We are doomed.
Well,
Okay, but
they also
no,
did
jokes aside.
Destroy All
Jokes aside.
Humans,
Well, yes,
so
they did the
well, they did
remakes
the
for Destroy
remakes,
All Human. Yeah,
and those
and
were
for the
good.
yeah, like I played the originals. I haven't played the remakes, but from what I've heard, they did good with the remakes. From what I've
Yeah.
heard, I haven't played them for myself. No, but from what I heard, the game is aiming to be like an action RPG, like the 2018 God of War. And for one, I think it's a perfect fit for this kind of game, considering
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
Mikey's physique and all the arsenal he has. I think it could work really damn well. So I'm saying, you know what? Considering again, we don't have a release date. All we know is that it's
Or
happening. So
any kind of
gi-
information, really.
yeah, so like give them the time, give them the budget, and I really hope it's gonna be good because it can definitely work. I can see it, but I do want to say, if you watch the teaser after you read the comic, you'll notice that because it. I won't even say it's a just CGI trailer because you barely see anything, but you see four candles, and then like when the first one goes out, you see a bunch of water in the background. When the second one goes out, you see a bunch of fire. When the third one goes out, you see a bunch of arrows falling to the ground. If you read the comic, you know that each one is how each of the turtles dies.
Hmm.
So that already kind of shows me that, you know what, we're getting people who read the source material, they appreciate the source material, and they
Hmm.
know how to get to those who read it.
Hmm.
So I'm excited about that.
I'm very
Now,
interested how they'll do those flashbacks in a game in the game, right?
that's another thing that I'm kind of because after having read last year's, I am wondering if it's worth maybe using that material from that too. Because now that some of Mikey's story about how he got to where he got are well known, but I also think if you're just gonna do it, then you are essentially having to fight two big villains in a way, and like then and the game might feel disjointed in terms of plot if they do that, but
Mm.
maybe they can find a way. And also, is it gonna be just Mikey, or are we gonna play as one of the other turtles in the flashbacks?
I would
Is it?
assume the way I would do it is,
Mhm.
even though the other turtles die, let you play as them in the flashbacks, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
like a flashback boss battle sort of deal, and then that's
Yeah.
where they die, and you die, and then you go back
Hmm.
to the you know present
Yeah, like
time.
have a, or like there's the flashback where like you have the mission with Raphael that he's storming the food headquarters, and then it ends with a battle against Karai, and then you have the cutscene, which
Mhm,
oh, and then same with Leo and Casey. Like you play them
mhm.
in that kind of defend the flag mission. The explosion happens, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
It's definitely
it can work.
possible, but again, it's one of those things though
To
that I don't know when or how we're gonna
yeah.
learn more about that game.
To be
But
fair though, I don't know if this isn't something that like I think it'd be a great game, but it's not something I would want as a game. This is something, you mentioned it earlier a little bit, before we started recording. I would
yeah,
rather have this as a movie or like a one-off
yeah,
small show, something,
I
right?
would honestly, I would glad to have this as a movie or show, but I think the best way to get this adapted might be a direct to video movie like they did with the Batman crossover.
Hmm.
Because if they do this as a movie, I
Especially if they
think
put the same amount of effort into it, right?
yeah, of course, and not just do killing joke. That's a popular comic. Let's just make the comics a storyboard and add a prologue that means nothing. So,
That had
but
so much chance. They had like that was there was so much they could have done with that.
yep.
And they
But I think either a direct to video like the Batman crossover, because the Batman crossover, the movie was actually really good.
yes.
So,
Yeah, I've
so
seen some of
there's
that.
that,
It was good.
and like a live action movie, I would honestly be all about because that
Not
way
live
there's a good
action,
chance.
I would
Like a
say.
live action CGI can work. I think they can do it.
It's fine, it can work, but like I think this would be way better animated, right? Especially if they can
Oh
get a similar style or do it in like the new style with Puss in Boots and Spider-Man,
well, there's a
across
movie like
Spider-Verse
that. It's
Spider.
called. You know that there's Mutant Mayhem, which came out earlier this year,
Yes,
but
I'm aware.
yeah, the thing is though, if they do actually, there's a really funny I sadly can't find it, but I saw a really funny drawing somebody made of like in Avatar: The Last Airbender there's like the Avatar cycle,
Hmm.
like that, like Aang is looking and he sees all the previous lives, like going all the way into the background until they become tiny.
Yeah.
So somebody did this like with the Mutant Mayhem Mikey about to join this long line of Mikeys, and he needs to stand next to the Last Ronin Michelangelo, and all the other ones are like have this look of like, ooh, like when my fiance just sent this to me one morning without any context, and I told her, listen, this is fucking hilarious, and I you probably don't get it, but trust me, this is the most hilarious shit ever.
Hmm.
It was really good.
Hmm.
So, I think not necessarily. I think actually the Puss in Boots style might not, or like the
I mean,
Mutant
it may
Mayhem
not,
style.
but I would love to see this art style animated, right? Because it would probably look
Yeah,
really good moving.
the I think there would be like a wrong way, a good way to do it.
Yes,
Because the
absolutely.
reason I say
This is one of those
because the
things of it would either be really good or really bad if you didn't get it right.
I will say though, and not necessarily the models, because the designs in those movies are terrible. But like if you throw at it the budget that the Michael Bay movies had, again, as much as these movies suck, but like if you maybe tweak the models from that a bit, maybe it can work.
That's fair. I mean, just giving it that budget alone would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah, like that budget, and obviously a person who knows what he's doing, which means no Michael Bay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, no, bring him back.
No, no.
Let him ruin more childhood.
No, please no. We did this twice, and there's a reason why they never made a third movie, because the second one bombed. Okay, as
Michael
long
Bay's got to eat too, man.
sadly,
Purge can only feed him so much.
I will say though, I will say whatever you do, don't cast Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman again. That was the most bizarre. I'm not sure if you've seen that
I
movie. Have you
have.
seen it?
I kind of
Uh,
loved him as Baxter Stockman.
no,
It was
listen,
so
because
stupid.
it's like I don't know who decided to tell him. You know this YouTuber called Andre the Black Nerd who talks about the Ninja Turtles. Yeah, just play him. Be- like the way it's like
It's bad.
Comic Con.
It's bad,
it,
but
it
I kind of
was
love it.
like it was bad, but it was beautiful. Like the four kids One Piece rap. It's terrible, but you love it.
Oh yeah, no. All right, I feel like the Four Kids One Piece rap has just been adopted by the fandom as no, this is One Piece. Like if there's
I,
anything that's One
I
Piece about that
guess.
show, that's One Piece.
I guess, but when you listen to the Japanese team songs,
Oh yeah, no, there's a stark contrast. It's way better. But
there you go. There you go.
but
So that
him as Baxter Stockman, that was just bad. But
no,
it
that
was I
was
still loved it, right?
yeah, I guess. So same idea. Well, anything. I honestly, whatever they decide to do with the story, I'll be interested, and maybe we'll be here to cover
You know,
it whenever it
well,
happens.
I do have one
Um,
final question for you. Because
it.
I would love to see this for TMNT because TMNT has a lot of like multiverse stuff, right?
Yeah,
And a lot
there
of
are
different styles and everything.
yeah, there are a lot of different versions. Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever heard of or watched? I believe it's called man, I'm gonna forget the name right now, aren't I? Let me make sure. Yes, okay. I was gonna say the wrong thing, so I'm glad I looked it up real quick. Have you ever heard or seen any Love? No, sorry, excuse me. Love, Death, Robots, or Love, Death plus Robots, or Love, Death and
I
Robots,
know
whatever it's called.
I know the show. I haven't seen it. I know what it is. Like
Okay.
I know that it's on. I know
Or
it's
did
a
you ever
Netflix show.
see, or
That
did you ever see any of the like the Star Wars like different animated things they did that Disney
I
put out?
know that. I know that there are a bunch of stuff out there.
I
Like
would love. I think this would be a good compilation thing, like this style and the Last Ronin thing to do in an
yeah.
animated compilation thing for TMNT. Like, see, like, hey, here's just
Mhm.
we've given some people some budgets, and here's a bunch of different
Actually,
small
funny you
TMNT
say that.
things.
Actually, funny you said it because for a long, not with it was before the last Ronin was a thing, but at some point Nickelodeon did just do a lot of animated TMNT shorts that are on YouTube
Oh,
with
okay.
different animated styles and stuff, and so they did something like this before.
Okay,
So
but that was aimed. I'm assuming because it's Nickelodeon, more at kids, right?
well, I guess because I get YouTube and everything.
True.
So, but the idea is there, I suppose.
I would love to see it though, like because Love, Death, and Robots and the Star Wars stuff, especially Love, Death, Robot, though, is more adult themed. To be
Hmm.
clear, very much more adult
Yeah,
themed.
I assume it's a live action show, so obviously
Well,
has
it's
that.
it's
But
it's like a mixture of animation, live action, all that stuff, right?
okay. Well, I whatever they decide to do with it, as long as they keep the heart and spirit of the original, I'm there.
Well,
I'm
I would.
interested.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask
I
you, like, would you be interested in something like that for TMNT? I'm losing my voice. Dang.
I like,
No, like,
oh, for Ultimate like, yeah, of course. Like, again, listen, this is a franchise that's been here for almost 40 years. There are
mhm.
so many goddamn versions. There's the light-hearted one. There's a darker one. There are a few ones that are CGI. One looks like a comic book. One looks one there are some live action ones. In some of them there are Jim Henson puppets. In others they are CGI. There are so many versions of TMNT out there,
Yeah.
and there's even one which crossovered with the fucking Power Rangers. So
Hmm.
honestly, so there are so many variations of TMNT these days that you know what, whatever you decide to do, as long as it keeps the spirit of it in there and not, you know, Shredder Transformer or Splinter teaching himself ninjutsu from a book, I'm good. Let's
I,
go.
I do that too.
No, don't.
What if they do? What if? What if they
But
do?
what if they don't? What? No, I can tell you what will happen if they don't. If they don't, it will actually be good.
But what if? But what if
And there's no what
Splinter?
if, Wolf. I gave you the answer. I
But
gave
what if
you the answer.
Splinter and Shredder though are gay
What about
lovers?
them?
You know you
Um,
want it. There's some fan fiction out there. I'm sure there
there's a
is.
fan, there's a fan fiction out there, and suddenly I'm said I can burn the computer. But okay, but
But
okay,
no,
but
it's definitely something
for the
I
record,
personally would be really interested in, right? Is like a
like
collection for TMNT like
for
that.
the record though, for the record, if you ship it, by all means do your thing. I just think it goes against what the Turtles is about.
No, it's fine. Like, I love how you just got completely silent.
I'm not sure if you can hear it, but
No, I hear.
there's a police siren around here. I send them after you. You better run.
I've committed a crime. No,
Yeah.
fair, but it's definitely something I wanted to bring up to you because
Hmm.
I think it'd be really interesting for TMNT, right, to see something
Oh,
like that.
again, this is a franchise that surprisingly, like something like Batman or Spider-Man or
Mm,
enter something else that's been around for a long time. There are so many versions that you know what I whatever version looks interesting to me, like this, I got hooked on the concept and I read the comic. And if they
mm,
want to do something with the comic, maybe not a direct adaptation, but like play around with the style, do something with this. I'm game.
no, fair.
Whatever Turtles content you want to send my way, I'm game. Nickelodeon, just the balls in your court.
No, fair, absolutely fair. Like I'm definitely Last Ronin made me more interested. I'm
Hmm.
interested to see where it goes, and hopefully it's good. I'm not super fond of the ending, but I'll give it a shot.
Yes, I'm not sure how long it will take them to finish Last Ronin 2,
True.
but whenever it does, maybe we'll review it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, go read The Last Ronin. It's good, even
Though again,
despite how I feel about the ending. Just go read it. It's good.
if you made it all the way until here, you must have read it because we've been spoiling this thing running for the
I mean,
past.
still go read it just so you can see the art.
Yeah,
It
go
is
read it again. I
amazing.
think I read it twice. Once just for myself, and the other time to refresh myself for the podcast. And I enjoyed the second time even more. So yeah, and definitely not the last time I'll give it a read, most likely.
Fair.
So I guess that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts about The Last Ronin? Have you read The Last Ronin last year's? Looking forward to the sequel, the game. What kind of movie would you like to see for it? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. So until the next episode, I was HC.
I was Wolf, and they're
And
coming
we'll
for
see you.
me.
Yeah, they are coming for us. So let's hope that they won't catch him. Maybe
Gotta
by the time
run.
until next time. Take care.
Bye bye.